Welcome to the Athlete Climate Academy, where we talk to athletes, scientists, and communicators about the critical conversations that we need to have regarding the climate crisis. And as always, we've got a great one for you today. Ajay Hanspal is a former Royal Marine and police officer turned advocate for mental health and physical well-being through sport. And if that wasn't enough, he thought he'd tackle the climate crisis too. And as co-founder of the Green Runners and an amazing athlete, he combines his passion for running with his commitment to environmental advocacy. I'm super excited to get his insights into all of that. Ajay, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Hugh. How are you?
I'm really, really good. It's been a while since we've seen each other out in Chamonix. You're across the world in Portland, Oregon. Is it you well out there? The weather's treating you well?
The weather's treating me well. I brought the good weather over from the UK because it's never raining and overcast in the UK. So
you didn't leave it
from the sunshine.
Well, to start off with, can you give our audience a little bit about your journey as an athlete so far?
Yeah, it all sort of started in 2018. I was serving in Her Majesty's Armed Forces as a Royal Marine, and I was sort of undergoing the commando course, which is, quite an arduous course. But yeah, in all honesty, like my career was very short-lived and pretty unsuccessful. So in February 2018, I suffered a traumatic brain injury. So I sort of had a fight with a rock and lost pretty badly. So I had a fall, knocked myself unconscious, and I think I lost about 40% of the function in my frontal lobe. That was pretty rough. And it sort of, in reflection, was a bit of a pivotal moment in my life. And I couldn't really walk very confidently after the injury. I mean, I could walk, but it was sort of like having vertigo. My balance was a bit all over the place. So part of my vestibular physiotherapy was sort of walking on trails, then sort of walking became jogging, and then jogging became running, and then got very, very carried away with it very quickly. And I guess running also sort of acted as mindfulness for me. I think I really struggled with sort of the personality changes post-brain injury, and a lot of the mindfulness things that were being prescribed to me. Yeah, it just didn't work. But actually being out in nature, having time to myself and connecting with the earth seemed to really work. And yeah, it probably saved my life during that period. So I'd spend sort of lots of time out in nature, I guess, as outdoor athletes do. And I guess, just started to become like a bit more aware of our unhealthy relationship we have with nature in the UK. And then going for lots of long runs, you sort of become a bit more aware of the poor condition, I guess, our ecosystems are in, especially at home.
So obviously it's going pretty well. Congratulations on breaking the double Paddy Buckley round record. That was just a couple of weeks ago. So you've decided to run away straight away and get out of... Was it that a traumatizing experience?
It was that traumatizing of an experience, yeah. As soon as I finished, I was like, I've got to get out of here.
How was the experience for you, though? So explain to our audience what the Paddy Buckley round is, what the double is. That's it, doing it twice. And why you decided to do it.
Yeah, where to start? So the Paddy Buckley round is one of three sort of classical mountain running rounds in the UK. The first and sort of the most famous being the Bob Graham round in the Lake District. But the Paddy Buckley round is sort of the Welsh equivalent, and it was started by Paddy Buckley, essentially as a sort of a training route so he could get fitter for the Bob Graham round, I believe. So it's about 66 miles and a circuit of sort of 47 summits in sort of northern Snowdonia in North Wales. And you can essentially take any route you like between the summits and sort of go in whatever direction you like. You just need to link them up. But sort of nowadays there is sort of a known line that most people take. And it's very steep, it's very rough, but it's very exciting. And it's often deemed, harder than the Bob Graham, probably by sort of 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours.
And like you say, like Snowdonia is really steep. I've done most of those summits, but trying to link each one of them is hard enough. Then doing it twice Was just one time wasn't hard enough for you?
Yeah, so I guess the idea came to me a bit gradually. So in 2022, in fact, I had entered sort of Ultra Trail Snowdonia and was in the 100-mile race and was doing quite well, but it got cancelled at sort of, I think it was about 60 kilometers. And I feel like I was running quite well, like I was in sort of third, fourth place, and I felt good. I feel like I could have progressed on well. And it was like a big goal for me, that race, and to put a lot into it, like sort of 6 months of training. And it felt like it was going to be my breakthrough race. But yeah, it just got cancelled and taken away from me. And then I was left a bit lost. They allowed us to run the 50K the next day, which I did. But like, you're not going to be competitive when you've already ran 60K the day before. So yeah, that sort of left me feeling a bit underwhelmed. And then next year, so 2023, I had entered again, but through sort of circumstances out of my control, I didn't even make the start line. So I always felt like I had some unfinished business in the Welsh Mountains, and I had trained there a lot as well. So I think I guess you get to sort of know the mountain range and know the peaks and the lines, and you can sort of begin to picture things in your head. And I was always sort of aware of the Paddy Buckley round. At first, it sort of intimidated me because the lines are, like they're just steeper, they're rougher, they're a lot more technical. There's often just no path. So yeah, it was like on my mind, and I think at one point I sort of scheduled a date to try and give it a go. But I guess after my brain injury, I do struggle sometimes to sort of find motivation for things where I know I'm not going to be sort of massively competitive. And sort of Findlay Wild has the Paddy Buckley round record, and he's like the best mountain runner the UK sort of probably ever produced. So I knew that like I was never going to get close to his time. Like I think I could run a fast Paddy Buckley, but like I'm still going to be, at least 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours off his time. So yeah, like I was umming and ahhing, and it wasn't like I couldn't quite picture myself doing it. And sort of around that time, I saw a documentary about Nicky Spinks, who sort of was going on a bit of a challenge over, I think it was over the course of 3 years, to do the double rounds. So doing each round twice, back to back. And there was a documentary about her double Paddy Buckley round, and I just saw it, and I was like, it just sort of switched something in my brain. I was like, yeah, that's what I need to do. Like it's right on the outer edge of what I thought was possible for myself. Like I knew, like it terrified me and scared me. Like I knew I needed to respect it and put in like a massive amount of training, spend a lot of time there. And I knew that I could also be competitive. So it seemed to be that right balance of like just about doable, but only if you, put in the work.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about putting in the work as on top of like that kind of huge trail running, either whether it's races or the big rounds and the likes. You also co-founded the Green Runners. That must take up a bit of your time as well. Tell us about the story leading up to how that started, why you decided that was a thing that you needed to do, and where you are with it at the moment.
Yeah, the Green Runners was sort of set up after COP26, and it was just essentially like a group of concerned runners. Like it was sort of myself, people like Jasmine Paris, Damien Hall, Dan Lawson, sort of amongst quite a few other awesome runners. And we all had sort of really incredible skill sets, not so much me, but yeah, everyone had these skill sets, but I guess individually, like we felt quite almost small, like we couldn't really make any sort of difference. So we're all in a group chat, and yeah, like I suggested, why don't we form a club and, try and put our minds together, and collectively, I guess our voice and our abilities would be sort of more actionable and more meaningful. So that's what we did. I think it was probably nearly 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, we set up the Green Runners, and we sort of based it around 4 pillars, which are sort of how you move, how you kit up, how you fuel, and how you speak out. And yeah, we simply just ask new members to sort of pledge to take action on one of those things. And it could be anything like big or small, all of them, or just one of them. Mainly, the main goal is just to sort of create a movement or a bit of a joint voice just to advocate for the planet. So, for example, it could be if someone wanted to join, it could be like just trying to make their kit last longer or try and take public transport where possible. So it is like approachable. None of us are perfect by any means. So we just sort of started and yeah, we've just been blown away. Like we have over 1,000 members from various countries all over the planet. So yeah, we're going from strength to strength and it seems to be going well.
Which one of, as the founders, I assume you had to take the pledge as well. Which one did you decide you wanted to do?
Oh, that's a good question. It was quite a while ago. I think I wanted to make my kit last longer. So part of that was like buying more durable kit, making sure the kit lasts longer, and then repurposing the kit. So that was definitely one. The other one was sort of taking public transport more often, sort of where viable to do so. We've had sort of, I guess, almost 2 decades of austerity and underfunding in the UK. So like taking public transport's hard. So I did go without a car for about a year. But I do now have a car because it just wasn't possible for me anymore. Like I really did try. So, and this is what like we try and tell members is like, yeah, you can try and make changes in your own life to reduce your own personal carbon footprint. But, you know, if it's not reasonable to do so, then, you know, just speak out about the barriers that have been put in place there, because they've probably been put in place there for a reason. And that's sort of where the big change needs to come from, is from sort of institutions and governments. And the whole idea of like a personal carbon footprint, it's, you know, it was essentially made by BP and promoted by BP to sort of shift blame away from big corporations. So yeah, I think individual action is brilliant, but I think our most important pillar is definitely to speak out for system change. I think that's where the real change needs to happen.
I really enjoyed doing this podcast and listening and kind of finding out where people stand on different things, like how we should approach it as individuals, because I think we're pretty much, a lot of us are in agreement. Anyone who wants to fight for climate advocacy and big progressive actions on climate change, I think we're all pretty much in agreement of where we need to go with that. We need to ditch fossil fuels. We need more renewables. We need better public transport. We need this and that. But finding out of people, you know, what they allow themselves to still do, what they find is the things that hold them back. You know, you say public transport in the UK is pretty bad. In the States, I keep hearing that it's even worse. So, you know, having it's a similar approach to what I have, like a really kind of common sense approach to it. I'm really enjoying finding out what limitations people put on themselves. And I think I personally think that's the best way to do it, is put limitations on yourself, to not put limitations on others, because everyone needs to create their own. And I suppose that's what the Green Metal Pledge does.
Yeah, I think that's sort of how we designed it, was that it was approachable for everyone, because you need to meet people where they're at. You can't just expect them to make a sudden leap. And yeah, sort of having 4 pillars, people can almost choose. And then there's such a degree of spectrum on sort of all those pillars. You know, if people want to, you know, take how we fuel, for example, they could decide to go, you know, fully plant-based and just cut out meat, dairy, animal products, or they can just, you know, try and eat, you know, have 1 veggie day a week. Like, it's very much, as long as they try and make some action on something, you know, that's progress. And we're not very much looking for perfection. None of us are perfect in any way. Like, we live in an imperfect system where perfection is like impossible to achieve. Like, we can't even send an email without creating emissions. So, yeah, you know, we're all hypocrites to an extent. So, yeah, as long as people try, like, that's all we want. But it's mainly just getting the voices together and, yeah, having sort of an institution in trail, mountain, or just running in general, like, that's advocating for the planet and sort of a sustainable approach forward.
Yeah, I suppose it's advocated and lobbying those people who actually do create the systems that we have to use in society then. So I know you were a big part of the push for UTMB to remove Dacia as one of the main lead sponsor as well. So chatting to people and being in the room where it happens and like talking to people who create the systems, it takes you from being an individual to being part of a group like the Green Runners and Athlete Climate Academy and the likes, and Protect Our Winters, and it gives you like, I don't know, it's a group of individuals that are doing something really huge then, and it actually does make a difference, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think we definitely saw that at UTMB last year. Um, so yeah, I guess for people who don't know, UTMB last year announced. Well, I didn't really even announce it. Like, I think I checked Twitter or Instagram one day and just noticed that UTMB's name had changed from sort of UTMB to Dacia UTMB. And I was like, that's odd. That's a car manufacturer. And it's not like UTMB can't have sponsors or our sport can't have sponsors. I think like that's a fundamental core part of our sport and progressing it forward. But it seemed like they almost crossed a bit of a blurred line or like tipped over that threshold. Because obviously, it's about as high carbon as a sponsor can get, and they don't really have any interest in trail running. So I think, yeah, like the Green Runners, we had a discussion, and obviously all agreed, like, yeah, we don't collectively think it's okay. And then brilliantly, like Protect Our Winters and the Pro Trail Runner Association also sort of had internal conversations and expressed some sort of level of discontent as well. And then we were able to sort of as groups or get together and put a bit of pressure on UTMB. And yeah, to UTMB's credit, like they came to the table and I think they actually approached us first and said, yeah, we'd like love to have a conversation, in which case we did. Yeah, and the conversations at first like weren't particularly constructive, but at least, we're able to have them. And, if we didn't exist as a group and we were all still individual runners, like we would never have had that conversation. And then, yeah, I guess less than a year down the line, I think it was only sort of 2-3 weeks ago, UTMB announced that Dacia almost essentially just been downgraded as a sponsor. So they're no longer a headline sponsor. I think they are still a premier sponsor. So there's work to do there. But it's, the fact that they had to action that is, that's a big deal. Like that's almost taking a contract and having to essentially breach it due to external pressure. So yeah, to me, like that's a humongous win. There's certainly work still to do there, but yeah, as groups, we were able to sort of hold UTMB to account and Dacia to account and change that headline sponsorship, and it worked.
Yeah, it really did. And that's always having these conversations is where it's at, right? Like we're in a moment where we're deciding what we're okay with, what we're not okay with, and you could call that cancel culture and whatever else. I think that term has got massively kind of disproportionate to its meaning and stuff. But like, effectively, you cancel one group because you don't like what they're doing, and I think that's okay. Like you said, like Green Runners, Pro Trail Run Association, and a bunch of others got together and said, okay, what do we think is okay? It's not as if that there's a written rule for anything. It's like we're going to have a conversation. We semi-represent the running community and their beliefs. Like, what do we think is okay and what's not okay? Okay, we've decided that having the manufacture of a device that only works by really emitting fossil fuels or burning fossil fuels to make greenhouse gases, that's probably not okay. And, for a runner, yes, we have to use them to get around, but they don't represent our sports in the same way that maybe someone who makes shoes or like trail running gear or, whatever else, outdoor gear in general. And those are the kind of the nuanced conversations that I think needs to be had. And without organizations that represent the trail running community, I don't know how we go about having those unless it's like social media or something like that. And Christ, if we can all be off social media more, that'd be great.
It would. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I think it's almost like at the core of the issue of sort of sports and sports washing is, like, where is that line? For company, it's not company. Yeah, the group advertising, they have a useful sort of definition of a high carbon sponsor, which I find useful because, you have to put the line somewhere. Even Hoka, which are, I guess, the headline sponsors of UTMB now, they will produce a massive amount of emissions, CO2e emissions in creating their products and their footwear. But I feel like, they probably sit on the, on the acceptable line or threshold of that decision. So it's not as if trail running can't have sponsors. I think like for the sport to grow and be sustainable in the long run, like, the athletes need money, they need to be supported. So do the races, the race directors, the volunteers. You know, I think volunteers really should be compensated. Like, I don't think it's okay for an organisation like UTMB to expect people to just give up their time just because they might get a free race entry. Like, I think there's more than enough money probably going around that, you know, people should be compensated. And I look at sort of trail and ultra running, and it's the sport that's sort of alongside snow sports and I guess water sports like surfboarding. It's the sport that other sports sort of look to set the gold standard in relation to sort of sustainability policy and long-term viability. So sort of what we do really does matter. So it just sort of makes sense for us to, you know, we don't need to have official associations, but like, I think if we can, you know, have structures in place or groups in place that sort of represent part of the communities, at least we can have those discussions to sort of, you know, roughly agree where that threshold and boundary is of what's acceptable for our sport going forward, and trying to balance like growth in the sport with, you know, it being actually sustainable in the long run. You know, we can't just keep on destroying the planet, otherwise we're not going to have trail running, but we also need the money. So yeah, it does need to be set somewhere. But I'd say for most runners, yeah, like a high carbon sponsor like an airline or a car manufacturer is probably not okay.
Yeah, and you know, like I think about this a lot. A couple of years ago, Shell approached me to run a bunch of to take all their money and take it all out of the ground. No, they approached me to teach solar. It was basically creating solar powered cars in a workshop, engineering workshop for kids, right? So we were teaching kids how solar power works, how to be good engineers, and how to like use science to solve problems. And I took it and I went to London, and, you know, we ran this day, and the schools came from all around the UK to this one place, and we had a competition, and, you know, they ran all. And I've been thinking about it for years. Like, is that okay or not? Like, I was teaching kids about science, teaching kids about engineering, teaching about renewable energy. But essentially, the conclusion I came to is a little bit of like, whatever washing you want to, stem washing or something like, of, hey, we're going to teach kids about renewable energies, but we still get all our money from fossil fuels. It's such a difficult thing. And it's one of the reasons I probably wouldn't do it again, but I don't regret doing it in the first place, because it's a really nice day for all these kids to come down and like show off their science skills and stuff. But knowing where that line is why I try not to judge anyone for the choices that they make, because it has to be an individual's choice. How do you weigh up that, like, that internal hypocrisy voice in your head of like, am I okay to do this? Am I not okay to do that, as an individual rather than as a group?
Yeah, I guess the biggest sort of challenge I come across is the classic sort of whataboutery, and I guess that's people sort of labeling you as a hypocrite. So they just sort of level the charge of double standards or hypocrisy, just to try and sort of discredit what you're saying by sort of raising that charge and just trying to sort of undermine you. And I guess that comes back to what we were saying earlier, like, you can't be perfect in an imperfect system. There's a great saying by a comedian, what's his name? Oh, it'll come back to me, but the saying is, when it comes to climate action, you're either a hypocrite or an arsehole. I think it was Jonathan Pye. But I think that's really true. Like, you know, I do my hardest to try and take personal action where reasonably possible, but, you know, where it's not reasonable, you know, I try to speak out and take action against those barriers that are in place. But everyone comes from a different background and is in a different position. So, you know, I guess living in the UK and the West, you know, I'm extremely fortunate where I guess financially, I'm able to, say no to sponsorships that don't align with my value. And, you know, it'd be great to have that sort of small financial gain and free kit and race entries. But having said that, I'm in a position where I don't need that as much as other athletes might. I try not to judge other people. You know, we're all at different places. We all have different backgrounds. And I think that's okay. What's reasonable for other people might not be reasonable for me. and that's fine. Like, as long as everyone's trying and sort of acknowledges, like, we need to take some action. Yeah, I think, not
Yeah,
sure where
that
I
does
went
make
with that. Got a bit
sense.
random, but
And, one of the things that I speak to a lot of athletes about is like, is it okay to work from the inside on stuff? And I've definitely worked with companies in the past that, I wouldn't say are the best for the environment and sometimes actively harm the environment. But, some of the stuff we've done together, I feel like I've pushed them in a better direction than they were before. So, if you're at a big company, they're sponsored by a huge company that, might not think of sustainability and climate at one of the forefronts of what they do, hanging in with them and kind of pushing from the inside and advocating for them to do better, is one of the things that I think Green Runners push for, is like advocating for your sponsor just to be that bit better at all times. So it's definitely something that we at Athlete Climate Academy push for is, you have as an athlete or as a consumer of their products, you have some sway in what that company does. So let's ask them to do better. Let's see what the impact reports are. Let's see what their climate change strategies are. What are your CO2 emissions for the year? And just ask them what they're doing to push forward. So in terms of like future goals, and both for you, for like in running, but also in climate advocacy, what's the next few things that you've got coming up that you're really excited about?
yeah, I think the Green Runners will sort of naturally grow from strength to strength. I sort of look forward to the Green Runners and Protect Our Winters and the PTRA sort of continuing to liaise with each other. I think our collective voices will be so much stronger. I think we saw that with UTMB. But I guess for me, like, I often feel, almost like lost in the Green Runners because we have so many incredible people with like incredible skill sets. And I just think, I probably don't have that level of skill set. I'm still quite young. So I guess all I have is, I don't know, like approaching it from a young person's point of view and interests. So it was interesting what you just said about athletes in our sport. Like, when we were contacting athletes about our UTMB petition, we found out like there's a lot of athletes out there who are doing the most incredible things with their own sort of personal climate action, sort of big or small, but it was all incredibly meaningful, and a lot of athletes are trying. But you would never know, like they never speak out about it just for the fear of being labelled hypocrite and, losing followers or being seen to be imperfect. And I guess for me, going forward, I'd like to try and encourage athletes to speak out a bit more. To me, that's like by far our most important pillar, because if enough athletes do that, like, some people will label them as a hypocrite, but I think enough people will listen to that. I think it's almost sort of regularly shown that sort of sports people are by far the most influential people on the planet. Probably not trail runners, probably like more like Michael Jordan, but even then, like, people trust sports people and athletes more than politicians, which probably like says a lot about our politicians. So like, our voice matters. Like, people will listen to you. Like, you don't need to be perfect. And I think, not being perfect or not, trying to appear perfect on social media, like, that makes you more authentic, and people will trust you and listen and understand, and you're never going to please anyone. So I guess for me, like, I want to make more athletes speak out about it, because big companies, big corporations will listen. And then if other sports see what, trail runners are speaking about, they might do the same. And then if you get like big football players or big rugby players, cricket players, if they start speaking out about it, then actually, politicians might start paying attention. So it all, if we all start saying the right message, it will snowball. So I guess that's my sort of climate advocacy goals. As for my personal running, I've got the Tour de Gis on in September, which is quickly fast approaching. Oh God, yeah. I'm hoping to do well, but it'll be my first time running for a third night. So it might just be a bit more of a recce for sort of subsequent years. But I hope I can break the top 10, but that race is getting more and more competitive. It seems there's more and more crazy people out there that I want to run 200 odd miles in the mountains.
Of course.
And
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, and then next year I'll attempt to double Charlie Ramsey round. So the Scottish round, and then after that, hopefully the Bob Graham. So yeah, like it's a bit of a personal ambition to hold the double record on all three, sort of before I'm 30. So I've got 4 and a bit years to get going. Hopefully,
Nice.
We'll see.
We'll
Lots
see.
of running.
Yeah, lots of running, but also, in between that, it's not as if you're twiddling your thumbs. You're doing some really, really good work. I'd encourage everyone to find out more about the Green Runners and taking that pledge and learning more about what they do and how you can reasonably start like individual processes kind of going forward. AJ, thanks so much, man. AJ Hanspal is the co-founder of the Green Runners and an amazing trail running athlete. AJ, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man.
Thank you so much for having me.